Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. The issue on mineral rights continues to unravel in South Africa's mining industry, with a firm commitment being made by government to identify gaps and weaknesses in legislation. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer is in studio with me to unpack the story. Welcome to the show, Martin. Last week, the awarding of mineral rights surrounding Lonmin, Kumba Iron Ore and ArcelorMittal South Africa took centre stage, and this week we have a firm commitment from Mineral Resources Minister Susan Shabangu to remove regulatory uncertainties within the MPRDA. Can you take us through this, as well as into the introduction of a license process tracking system?
You know, this license process tracking system is like manna from heaven. You know, people have been operating in the dark in South Africa, and if they didn't have friends who were intimately involved with geology, they had difficulty in finding out what was available in South Africa, which is all wrong, because you can go into much smaller countries in Africa and you can get on your internet. You don't even have to go to the country. You just get onto your computer and you can find out what is available. We haven't had that in South Africa. We also don't know what parts of the country are registered and taken up and what is available. Now, this new commitment is immediate. From the 1st of September, people will be able to have an idea of what is registered and what is not with the department. But then they're going to go into a much bigger information technology promise, where there will be a state-of-the-art system that they roll out in 6 months, which will bring us into the 21st century with regard to mining licensing, prospect licensing, what is available, what is not available for potential application. And that should have happened a long time ago.
Okay, and for the next few months, what can we expect in terms of the awarding of mineral rights?
Well, you know, we have this moratorium for 6 months. For 6 months now, people are told you can't put in applications because we are unable to cope with them. We need a timeout, as they say in some of the sports arenas. I don't believe that's constitutional. I mean, the law says you are allowed to apply for these rights. How can they suddenly say, hey, we put the red robot on? You know, it's an administrative problem. I think people who are ready to apply legally will be allowed to apply. I mean, you can't sort of stop them as far as I can see, except that administratively they will close the door on you, which I think is a little bit unfortunate. I do realize that, you know, they've had quite a build-up, but they've also had a long warning time. And their behavior is unacceptable on the moratorium front as far as I'm concerned. People, I think, are going to live with it because nobody wants to upset the government. You know, you're applying to the government is the custodian. They all say, yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir. That's why we've got problems here. The private sector should have taken the government to court ages ago. They should have put this through the court, so we would have had some precedent. But they've been so politically correct. Their knees have been shaking because obviously they're looking for rights. They don't want to upset the government, who's the custodian of the licenses, so they back off. We've only had one case of Forestry that took the department to a court, a world court, linked to the World Bank, and we can see how the department's knees buckled under this pressure. Firstly, they had an irregularity because the advocate that they had appointed, paying with our money, had betrayed them, went to Forestry and said, can I have a bribe? And I will see that you win the case. I mean, how disgusting for South Africa. And now we can see that instead of Forestry having to have the normal 26%, there's some left-fielded BEE that they've been allowed to come through with, which I think a lot of other people are going to start studying and saying, hey, if they get away with 21% for beneficiation and 5% for shares to their employees, what about us? So I think that, you know, we've got trucks driving through the loopholes in the law. And it is because people have sat on this instead of taking action. There should have been action, pro-action, long before we've had this situation where we've got administrative malfunctioning. They say that there are 100 applications where there are problems. Possibly there's more. They say, well, we've dealt with 25,600. You know, other countries are also dealing with this. There's no excuse for what's happened. Now we've got a moratorium. Now we're told, oh, there's going to be a major overhaul of this flawed act. It's got gaps, it's got weaknesses, we're told. We were told that by the previous minister. You know, she told us to clapping hands at the Indaba in Cape Town that she was going to streamline. So then she went to become the Minister of Water Affairs. So, you know, this is a huge dereliction of duty. The government should be made to pay. And they're not, because people are weak-kneed.
And talking about being proactive, last week we spoke about where you hoped that there wouldn't be a constant review of the law, but rather an immediate need for transparency. So while this seems to be a step in the right direction for South Africa, do you feel that this might be just another review?
Well, if it is just another review, you know, the government of the day is going to be flayed. They're going to be hanged. They're going to be drawn. They're going to be quartered. Because I think enough is enough. And they better do what they say they're going to do. And they better do it fast. They're saying now they can only get this legislation through in the first quarter of next year. We've heard that sort of thing before. Then it drags on throughout the whole year. We know that they rush to Parliament and they present it to the Portfolio Committee, which is a good sign. And I think the good part of this is that the people driving this reform are government, business and labour. And it's not just government. And I think that's why this time around we're going to succeed.
Well, let us hope for the best. Thank you for your time, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Bryn.
That's the show for today. Join us again next time as we take an in-depth look at the mining world's premier projects, industries and business personalities.